Hey guys, today we want to conquer file I/O. In other words, file input output. To open files, to write the files, to read from files, and to close the files. In Python, there are two methods. The first method is the just open method. This is the first one here, where we use the open function. As you can see, the parenthesis means it's a function. We read our data using the read function, and then we have to close the file afterwards. The other method of doing it, which is a bit more straightforward, is to use the with command alongside the open, and this means that we don't have to close the file afterwards. So this just automatically closes it for us, and it's just a bit more efficient. Okay. One of the reasons why we have to do it is if we use this method, there are a certain number of open file operations that Python can perform before your memory fills up and then the program crashes. However, with this method, that's not required. So that's done away with. So using the example that we just saw in the slide before, I want to try and open a file called films. And at the moment, this has got nothing in it. Let's add a film. Okay, let's add die hard. And let's add a new line. And let's go back to here and let's try access that file and the text from within that file. So let's say our file is equal to, and we're attaching the open function to a variable, and the file name is films.txt, and we want to open this file for the purpose of reading. Now what I want to do is I want to take the data from that file and I want to store it in a variable. So I'm going to say data equals file. So now I'm referring to the variable which contains the file open command and open for reading, and I want to use the dot method and add a function, an operation called read. So then afterwards, as we said, we have to close the file. So again, we're going to use the dot method and we're going to close. You're going to use the close operation to close the file, preventing memory leaks. Right. So now we just want to print to see if the data that was in the file has been read and then it is output to the screen. So if we click on run, it works. Cool. So if you're using Python directly installed on your computer, instead of how I'm using, for example, a website that does it, usually if I have a file name that doesn't exist, Python will try to create it in the same directory that your Python file is being run from. Okay. That's not the case here, so it won't work. So for example, if I was to take file films2 and run that, it will tell me that the file doesn't exist. Okay, whereas that wouldn't have happened if I used Python directly installed on my computer. Instead, it will create a file in the folder. Right, so next, I want to add to that file as well. Let's go back to our slides for a second. So you may have noticed that when I wrote the file name, I also added a second argument. So there was a comma here with a second argument, and then I added the R for read. So that means that I'm opening the file for opening, I'm opening the file for reading. And if I was to add a W, I'd be opening the file to write, or to be more specific, it's to overwrite. So if I was to use a W, if there was something already in the file, it would have overwritten the whole file with the new data that I'm adding. However, if I use the append, so if I use A, it will add the new data that I want to add to the end of the file. Let's give that a go. To do that, I'm going to use the write command. So another operation I can use once I've opened the file is the write. And as you can see here, I'm going to put the title of the film, or in this case, this is a song, into a string. And let's try run it and see what happens. So I'm going to change the R to a write and use the file write command. And I'm going to add diehard 2. Now, as we said, because I've used the W command, it should overwrite the data already in the file. So if we go to films, we can see there's diehard. And if I run this now, and I go back to here, now it's overwritten what was there and it's replaced it with the second one. So I don't really want that to happen. So let's add Die Hard 2, but let's change the W to an A. So that should now append to the end of the file. Let's run that again. Now if we go back, you can see that it's added a second title, but they've added them both on the same line. Okay. So a quick way for us to fix that is we could say, let's add a \n. All right. So we use the escape codes that we learned before. If we run it now, in fact, let's get rid of that first. And let's try that again. If we click on run, this time, as you can see, it hasn't done it has done it. It has done it. All right. The reason, the problem is I added the \n here at the end, and it's created a new line for me. What I should have done in this case, silly me. You should probably put the \n at the end of each line, but maybe what I should do here is, because the line already exists, in this case, maybe I'll put it at the front. So when I run it now, and we check again, oh, we have an extra line because we created an extra line before. Oh, this is getting tiring. Let's try again. So now there isn't the extra line. If I run now, it should look just fine. And if I add a third film, so let's add a third film. Let's add Die Hard 3. Let's click on run. It should look just fine. Okay, cool. Okay, let's try a couple more things. Before we read the file and we printed, if you remember, here I kept running this print data, and it keeps saying that there's none because there is no data, right? So this time I'm going to make a change again. Let's go back to R. So let's open this file for reading again. Let's change that again to read. Okay. Now, what you'll notice is when we click on read, it reads everything in the file as one big document. So if I run that, it works, right? I can also use ReadLines. So what it's done here is to give me every single line as it is in the file. If I click on ReadLines, it will do the same thing, spot the difference. This time what it's done is it's added every single item into a list, and it's included the / for me as well. Now bear in mind the / was in the previous when we used read as well. You just didn't see it because what you saw instead was the text was split over 3 lines. So it does exist. Okay, so I'm going back to this line here, sorry, this particular slide here. And what I want to do is I want to now open the file with this way of opening it, just so that we've practiced that as well. And then what I want to do is I want to read every single line in the file, and I want to state how many characters long each line is, okay? So this is just a bit of practice of how to sort of combine all the little skills that we know. And not in the next video, the video after, I want to do something very similar. We walk through sort of GCSE style tasks, and we solve some problems with all the skills that we've learned previously. Yeah. So this is like a mini one. Let's go back to our programming window. So like we said, we're going to make a small change here. This time we're going to say with open file with R as file. Now I can say data, and I'm going to say read lines, file read lines. And I can now get rid of the file.close command, okay? And I've got the data stored as data in this variable here. And like I said, what I want to do is I want to iterate over every single item. So now that, because I've used read lines, I know that every single item is going to be in the form of a list. So if I click on run, you can see here that each item now is a list, but I want to get rid of those \n's if they exist, right? So what I want to do now is I want to say for line in data, I want to say I want to print. No, first of all, I want to strip the line. Okay, so I want to say, let's create a new variable here called stripped, because we want to remove the \n. So we're going to say rstrip, and we want to strip the \n. And then what we want to say is, in fact, let's take this, let's nest that. We want to say print stripped. In fact, we want to say the length. So we want to say how many characters long each line was, right? So now if I run that, hopefully no errors. Oh, rstrip. Oh, sorry, my mistake. Don't forget it is a method, wasn't it? So, oh, I need to wake up. I haven't had my coffee yet. Stripped equals line.rstripped. So we're doing a for loop here, and our local variable now, so for each line, each item in the array is going to be referred to as line. And we're saying that stripped is equal to that particular line using the rstrip method to remove \n from the end. And we just want to print the length of that line that we've named strip. So now you can see here that there are 8 characters in Die Hard, there are 10 characters in Die Hard 2, and 10 characters in Die Hard 3. Right, guys, that's this video. I think the next video is probably the last basic skill I want to show you before we move on to working on some projects. So I'll see you in the next one. As always, go to the website, do the tasks. The more you practice, the more confident you're going to become. See you in the next one.